In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for coming. As you probably already know, this is the first meeting of this type that we've been having, and that we're going to have in the church. But God willing, we plan to continue this in the long run. This first series is a 4-part series called The Introduction to Successful Marriage. And I wanted to just give kind of a brief introduction as to the motivation of why we created such a meeting. And then also, what are some of the things that are going to be discussed, whether they'll discussed specifically in these next 4 months, or whether they are discussed in general, like in any of the other meetings and the sessions that we have. So many of us know that the divorce rate in the United States is very high. It's actually 40 to 50%. And when you ask this question as to why that is, none of those people who got divorced believed that they were going to get divorced when they got married. Actually, maybe their marriage and their wedding day was one of the happiest days of their life, and they imagined spending a long life with the spouse that they are marrying. But something happened. Either they weren't ready, or they didn't know what is it that they should expect, or they didn't manage the relationship well, or other circumstances outside of their control came and revealed maybe weaknesses in the relationship that they had. And for one reason or the other, though they at one point wanted to spend the rest of their lives together, now they feel like they can't maybe even stand each other. And this is, of course, a very stark change that happened in their life as a result of whatever life experiences that they had from the time that they got married till the time that they chose to be divorced. There are also many people in relationships that are not divorced, and yet they don't have good relationships together. Maybe the reason they're not divorced is because they know the church doesn't allow divorce. They don't want the drama of the divorce, and so they continue to live together, but they're unhappy. And maybe they don't like each other at all, and they have maybe bitterness or resentment toward one another because of things that have happened, or they don't communicate well together, or they don't know how to resolve conflict well together. For many, many different reasons, they're technically not divorced, but they're living as though they are divorced, or they wish that they could separate themselves from each other. And maybe the only reason that they don't is because the church tells them that they can't divorce, or because the effect that would have on the children, and other effects that are not really directly related to the health of the relationship. So I want to emphasize that this problem, even though we see it very clearly in the world around us, but it's also affecting the church, and it's affecting the people that are in the church. Of course, we know that the family is kind of like the core unit, that God intended to be the place where families are built and children are raised, and the family is very important. Actually, the spiritual impact that the family has on children being raised is actually more than the church itself, because the church, they come, a couple hours a week, whereas they're in the home for a very, very long time. So I want to speak about 3 general goals that we want to have in this meeting. The first one is to inform, and that's because some of the people, God willing, that I hope would be coming to attend the meeting are people who are betrothed, like they're engaged perhaps, but they haven't yet decided whether they're going to be married, or they're still in an early stage in their relationship and they haven't yet decided to be married, and they're waiting to see. The first kind of thing that they need to understand is, what should I be looking for? Because that's something that many people ask. What should I be looking for in a potential spouse? And that's one of the things we can explore in this meeting. What are some of the red flags, warning signs? What are some of the things that should be there or shouldn't be there to help all of us to get a better idea of what is going to result in a good and healthy relationship versus what is not? So that's the first goal, is to inform. The second is to protect. Right? Because there are a lot of temptations, there are a lot of attacks on marriages, the relationships that we have with one another. There's a lot of, struggle that people have, especially when things aren't going very well in a relationship, that maybe they would think they want to end it, right? So we want to be able to teach and support and educate to help people deal with those difficult times so that they can stay together by the grace of God. The third is to nurture. To nurture marriage means to make it the best that it can be. Being married is a lifelong commitment. And when we say the word commitment, we mean that we're in it to the end no matter what. But you can be in it to the end no matter what while you're happy, or you can be in it to the end no matter what wishing that you were dead. Okay? So the goal, again, is to support and nurture marriage relationships so that we can be fulfilled and happy as much as possible in our relationships with one another to the end of our life. So kind of to that end, we want to help you to ask relevant questions about your spouse. We want you to understand the dynamics of the relationship that you have. Why is it that maybe we keep falling into the same problem again and again and again, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of solution? How and when to compromise. Being able to identify the importance of spirituality. A lot of times people ignore this topic. They feel like, well, we just need to address the problem. We need to brainstorm and think about how is it that we should deal with the situation. Sometimes the problems that we have cannot be solved because we simply don't have the strength to solve them. Like if my personal weakness is the reason for a failure in the relationship and it's consistent, then the only way is for me to change. But maybe I can't change. Maybe I'm too weak to change, and God can help me through the work of the Holy Spirit in me to change. So it's something very important to focus on also in the relationship. Also, the importance of counseling. Sometimes people keep their problems to themselves and they kind of argue and bicker back and forth without bringing in kind of a wise and objective third party, whether it be a priest or another counselor, to try to help. So at a very high level, some of the things, God willing, that we would discuss in this meeting: spirituality, as I mentioned, finances. A lot of people have struggles in their relationship because they see finances very differently. Communication styles, beliefs and values, intimacy, parenting styles. People also get into a lot of conflict because they want to parent differently. Conflict resolution. When we have a conflict, how do we resolve it amongst ourselves? Decision making, the role that each person would play in the relationship. How to deal with factors outside the relationship, like in-laws and parents and friends. How much time we're going to spend together. What is the right balance versus spending time doing other things or with other people. So all of this is just kind of like a very brief kind of teaser to a lot of the things that, God willing, we're going to hear from the wonderful professionals that we have with us: Dr. Emad, Dr. Emad Mossad, Monica, Maawad, and Sarah Iskander. They're all educated and trained and licensed counselors, and God willing, they will be providing for us a lot of like very professional, important information that we can then take with us in our relationships. And God willing, this meeting can continue to grow and benefit all of us. So thank you again for being here, and I'm going to give it now to Sarah, who has some announcements for us.
Welcome to everyone that's here. I know this is not about me, but this is a dream of mine, and I'm so happy that all of us are here together to learn together and to grow together. And I hope that it really blesses all of us because we all have so much to learn. I'm just going to go over a little bit of housekeeping, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Emad. So overall, the meeting structure we'll start with announcements, prayer, and then announcements, and then we'll have a topic, and then we'll have a workshop. And then at the end of the workshop, we'll leave you guys with a monthly challenge, something to work on in your relationship until the next meeting. I do want you to know that we will be recording the lecture part. So we ask for you to keep that in mind. Be mindful of examples that you might be sharing that might reveal something about your relationship that you wouldn't want to be broadcasted, so that you can keep your own privacy. But of course, if you're fine with sharing whatever and let anybody knowing that might relate to you, then feel free to do whatever you like. So the lecture will be recorded, and it's going to be posted on YouTube so anyone can have access to it. If you do have any questions or comments that you'd prefer to be offline, please wait until the workshop portion. That will not be recorded and won't be shared. So there is plenty of opportunity to ask questions that may be a little bit more personal in nature, and it can be addressed during the workshop time. So with that said, confidentiality is really important so we can all feel safe to communicate with each other and to learn together. So we ask that you be respectful of other people, to keep this a safe space. So first, not to make fun of anybody or their situation, and two, not to share the things that you hear in this meeting, just in case nobody wanted it to be shared outside of this meeting. So we just ask that you be respectful of others, which I'm sure you all would. The other important thing that we want to talk about is hope. We know marriage is hard. That's why all of us are here today, right, for the first meeting. And we just want you to be encouraged that we believe in God, and He's the God of resurrection and life. So anything that happens to us in our life can be overcome. And He has a life, and anything is possible. So don't give up. And don't be too quick to jump to conclusions. If you read something and you're like, oh my goodness, I fall into this category of a couple, then I'm doomed. Like I said, you're not doomed. There's hope. And, God willing, together we'll learn and grow. So come wanting to grow. Some of you may feel like your marriage is perfect. And if so, then yay, that's amazing. Or your relationship right now before you're getting married. But still come with an open mind and an open heart to learn more and grow together. Kind of like what we were talking about before, to just really focus on your relationship. Try not to be too distracted with what's going on in other people's relationship or to compare yourself to another relationship. Just like Instagram is all fake, you have no idea, but just on small conversations of the people in this room, what's really going on in their relationship and what the dynamics are really like. So just remember that, just focus on yourself, really. But if you have something helpful that you can share with somebody else, feel free. We all can learn from each other. Resources, if you feel like you could use more support in your marriage, then we will be providing resources at the end of the meeting, and you can always ask one of us if there's anything we know about, and we're happy to provide what we know or to research with you to find what you're looking for. And then almost lastly, to talk about next month's sign up. We know that there was a lot of confusion this very first time that we were setting things up about the registration process. We just want to remind everyone that going forward, we do want you to sign up if you're interested in just coming to the meeting, or if you're going to be coming to the meeting rather, not just if you're looking for childcare. So we can provide snacks and table seating and all that stuff. And so the real lastly is, are there any couples in this room that are celebrating their anniversary this month? Okay. Good to know. Okay, that's all I have. Today's speaker is Dr. Emad Mossad. You can come and join us. He really needs no introduction. He is amazing, and we're going to really benefit from him. He is the chief of anesthesiology in the cardiology department at Texas Children's Hospital, and he's also now a fully licensed professional counselor. He's a great speaker. By God's grace, we'll learn so much from him. And we can't introduce Dr. Emad without introducing his lovely wife, Tant Mona, who's also a licensed professional counselor. And so I hope we really just enjoy the beauty of their gift of being with us. Oh yeah, and the refreshments you can feel free to grab and eat all throughout this meeting. It's very casual. Enjoy.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to be among you. It is a pleasure and a joy. The fact that we're all sitting here together says one thing, or two things. First says, I don't know what I'm doing. There is something I need to do better, or we need to do better. As a couple, we're coming here, we're saying, I don't know what I'm doing fully. I am willing to admit that I want to learn more, and I want to get better at life together. And that's a wonderful place to start. And the second thing that being here says is, I believe, I have hope. I trust God. So if you allow me to take a moment before we start, I know we're all looking at each other, so I'm going to ask, I don't know how to do this otherwise, to close your eyes, to give yourself some privacy between you and your spouse, you and your fiancé, whoever the person that you came with. To give yourself a moment, close your eyes and think of each other. Admit that I am weak. Admit that I am at fault. That I am not perfect. That I make mistakes. And admit that I trust in God who created me and gave me my spouse or my fiancé. He is the only one who can make our relationship perfect. Not books, not counseling, not this meeting, only He. What we're doing here is building tools so that He can use to bring us to the perfection that He created us to to have. Okay. So we called this workshop Introduction to a Successful Marriage. You know how, and you've all attended many weddings, including your own, Abuna, or the church reads for us from Matthew chapter 19, the words that Christ responded to the Pharisees when they came to him, challenging him about the concept of divorce. So clearly that it was even at that time, 2,000 years ago, there was a problem in the community or in society. What justifies divorce? For the Jewish person, they realized that marriage as an institute was God's gift and God's creation, and it's not to be taken lightly. So they were challenged, and they were challenging Jesus about the concept of divorce. When is it right to get divorced? And the Lord turned it around. He didn't answer the question. He didn't answer the question about when is it right to get divorced. He turned it around and answered, how is it right to be married? And he quotes from Genesis. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is miraculous. This is not human effort or human doing. This is God's doing. That this series of events that happen in a human being's life, whether a man or a woman, that there is a departure from your family of origin, a creation of a new nucleus or nuclear family, that there is a cleaving, and that two human beings become one flesh, is miraculous, and only God can create miracles. I don't know if you...
All right, this is my favorite subject, actually. I've been married for 35 years. I'm very happy. I asked my wife if I was happy. She told me I am. That's good enough for me. But I got married. Our relationship changed immediately, not gradually, but immediately. My wife started to share knowledge with me, knowledge I had no idea she had before we got married. Tremendous amounts of knowledge she must have stored throughout the years, waiting to share with her future husband, not all at one time, just bits and pieces here and there on an ongoing basis. And at one time I thought it would end, now I know it never will. But the thing is, I never know what's going to trigger her desire to share additional knowledge. That is the tricky part. That's the part that keeps us on our toes. It can pop up at any time for any reason or absolutely no reason at all. There are days when I'm going to walk through a room and I see my wife. Oh, I think I'll go the other way.
We laugh. There are so many videos, jokes, and any gathering that you will be, especially Egyptians, there will be some comments about the husband and what he does, the wife and what she does. We joke about it, and it's a good thing that we lightly deal with it. But the reality is the joke has a source, and the source is there is something wrong. There is an issue, and we make fun of it to try to make it lightly. There is a gap between the vision that God created and gave us marriage to be, and what reality that is in the world is today. And because of that gap, there are all these videos and these jokes. The vision that God gave us about marriage is very clear in Scripture. It's very clear in the church. Anytime we gather in the church, we pray the litany of the assemblies. Anytime Abuna will come to your home and pray, he will pray the litany of the assemblies. And he will say, or we will pray together, houses of prayer, houses of purity, houses of blessing, grant them to us, O Lord, and to your servants who will come after us. God's vision was for our homes to be these kinds of homes, this kind of relationship, houses of prayer, houses of purity, houses of blessing. And this is the environment that God uses the nuclear families, one after the other, first, to strengthen us as individuals, second, to create a world for children to be born in, raised in, and create their own families in the future. And that is how God propagates his kingdom in the world. God said, it is not good for Adam to be alone. The primary objective of God is not celibacy. It is marriage. It is for human beings to find a soulmate. And through that soulmate, we find comfort, help, and encouragement. That is his vision. His vision, we hear in Ecclesiastes, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward. He gives us reward. It rewards our life. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. It gives us restoration. It gives us reward. It gives us restoration. Again, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. Though one may be overpowered by another, 2 can withstand him. It gives us resilience. The vision of God in marriage is that the 2 of us together are rewarded. We have a rewarding life, are restored. We are picked up from our falls and our failures, and we all have falls and failures, but my spouse is my primary source to pick me up when I'm falling, to correct me when I'm wrong. So to reward, to have a rewarding life, to restore, and to give resilience. That is God's vision. The harsh reality is the world around us does not see marriage this way. We make jokes, but the harsh reality is in our face. Every year in the United States, there are about 2 million weddings. And every year in the United States, there are about 700,000 divorces. It is shocking. It is shocking. 14.5 of every 1,000 women in the United States are either divorced or going through separation and divorce. 40 to 50% of marriages, of first marriages, end in divorce. This was in the United States, but I can tell you it is now worldwide, including in cultures that used to be a lot more conservative. In Egypt, 40 to 50% of first marriages, 70% of second marriages. So you would think that I did a mistake the first time, I learned my lessons, I'm going to be better the second time. It doesn't happen. It actually is worse. 22% of the remaining marriages, when interviewed, have suffered significant disruption in their journey. If you look at that curve, this is from 1950 to date. There is a big bump that you see in the 1960s and 70s. This is for several reasons. One big reason is the woman going out to the workforce and having the burden and the chains of work that used to be only on the man. So the strength of the family got shook and disrupted by that. Not that women shouldn't work, not that work for a woman is wrong, but the devil used that as a weapon to shake the family. This is the time of feminism, when women started crying out for their rights, which is also not wrong. But again, the enemy used it as a weapon to shake the strength of the family. Laws and regulations started coming out in the 1960s and 70s to protect the rights, especially of women or divorcees, to regulate it. Again, it is not wrong, but the enemy used it to facilitate and make the divorce process more acceptable, more easy, more quick to go to. But if you think about it, and I don't know if anyone sitting here is a financial advisor or an accountant or is in the business of money. But even if you're not, and you are having savings, and you invest, and I tell you your investment has a 50% chance of being completely lost, how do you like that investment? Would you put all your eggs in that basket? 50% chance of complete loss. This is what we're talking about. When a couple comes to get married, they are going into an investment that worldwide has a 50% chance of complete loss. That's the harsh reality. And the United States is very proud. We are the strongest nation in the world, and we lead the world in the shortest duration of marriage. So from all the Western Hemisphere, where the rate of divorce is very high, the average duration of marriage is the shortest in the United States. We are the leaders of the world. Despite we living in a nation that is highly educated, financially much better than other worlds and other places, we are the leaders of the world in failed marriages. The harsh reality is we sometimes think religion, spirituality, faith can protect us completely from this risk, this harsh reality. The curve in front of you showing divorce over the past 50 years and couples who either went to church once a year, once a month, or once a week. And as you can see, divorce has continued to rise regardless of devotion to faith. Regardless of devotion to faith. Of course, there is some protection, but not prevention. So I don't want to undermine or underestimate the importance of devotion to faith. It is protective, but not preventive, which means that, yes, be devoted to your faith, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done besides that. It's not enough to come to church. It's not enough to be devoted. The graph on the left shows you the difference between those who are not devoted religiously and those who are devoted. And what this shows you is the gap has been narrowing, which means that those who were not devoted had a much higher risk of divorce compared to those who were devoted religiously. But as the years went by, over the past 50 years, that gap has narrowed, which means that devotion spiritually has lessened its impact on protecting. More work we need to do as Christians, as believers. There is still a lot of work we need to do. And this is true across all faiths. Christians are not protected. I'm sorry, this graph shows Catholics different than Christians, but that's how it is. That means traditional churches and maybe evangelical churches. But regardless, the rate of divorce is still quite high in any faith. Success in life also is protective but not preventive. The graph that you're seeing shows the relative divorce risk by relative and total income, and the impact of the contribution of the wife to the total income. This may come as a shock to you, or maybe it won't be a shock. The more the wife contributes to the income of the house, more than 50%, the higher the divorce rate. But it is important to recognize and think about, because it is not wrong for a married couple to have a wife who is in a position to make more money or is in a career that makes more money, it's not wrong. But it's important to recognize risk and deal with that risk. As you see in that graph, the significantly lower socioeconomic classes, that is the top of the graph, the dark black line, is the highest divorce rate. So more affluence, more financial resources are protective but not preventive. So it is true that poverty creates, and financial strain creates, a pressure on marriage. No question about it. But removing that pressure does not remove the risk of divorce. Ergo, turn on the TV. Watch movie stars. Watch financial gurus. Ask about Elon Musk. Or what's the Amazon guy's name? Jeff Bezos. Who can be richer than Jeff Bezos? Did not protect him from divorce. Did not protect him from destruction of his marriage. So finances can be protective, but it's not preventive.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So as far as what you said about the income of the wife, and the higher the income of the wife, the higher the divorce rate. Is this because of her income, or is it because that she is more willing to leave because she is already financially supported on her own because of other problems in the marriage? Whereas otherwise, though those problems existed, she would feel trapped and had no way to leave the marriage, so she was relying on her husband for income. So could you just speak on that point? Like, because it's not the case, or at least my feeling is that it's not the case that the divorce happened because she's making more money. That wasn't the source of the divorce. That just facilitated the ease of which she could get divorced. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Sir. We can analyze this, to death, basically. The bottom line is, it shows that finances are not the solution, and sometimes finances are the enabler for the dissolution of the marriage. But I like Abuna's point, because in fact it may be a manifestation of a sense of freedom, a sense of the ability to speak her mind. The solution for that is not for her to make less money. The solution is to learn to speak her mind and to have an environment where she can speak her mind. That she doesn't need to make more money to be able to speak her mind. That in a marriage that is healthy, making more or less money should not impact whether we stay in the marriage or not, because we are able to speak our mind. We are able to live freely. We are able to be ourselves without fear of retaliation or criticism. Education, like we talked about finance, education also can be protective but not preventive. So the other graph shows different professions and the percentage or the risk of divorce. And again, higher education gives people an ability to think better, be patient with their decisions, so it can be protective. And education is a healthy tool that can be used to protect the marriage, but it's not preventive. Again, high professional educated individuals go through the risk of divorce. Yes.
For that part, if you just previously, do you, about what we were just talking about with Abuna, do you think that a part of it is because it emasculates the man when the woman makes more money? Do you find that that's the case sometimes?
Again, that's not a consequence of her making more money. That's a consequence of wrong understanding of money.
On behalf of the man?
On behalf of the family unit. Whether it gives the woman different mindset or gives the man different reaction. The problem is not the money. The problem is their concept of money. And what does it mean for her or him to make more money, or to have a different job, or for her to not have a job? So it's not, money is not the problem. It's our concept of money, our relationship with money. But what we see is that the harsh reality is marriages fail across financial and socioeconomic and educational status. Time is protective, but again, not preventive. This shows the risk of divorce by age. So it is clear that young couples have a higher risk of divorce than couples who have been together for a long period of time. So time is protective, but not preventive. Because we might swallow our pride, we might tolerate things as we get older and we live longer together, but there is still a risk of divorce despite many years. In fact, there are two humps, the highest percentages of divorce. The first 7 years and at 20 years. Those are the two big humps of divorce. The first 7 years because of all the harsh, big strikes of starting a family, having kids, the burden of taking care of the kids, the financial stresses. We're still not as successful and as stable financially, so that hump happens. If you endure that hump and you live through it, at 20 years, the biggest reason that kept us together, the kids, are gone. And the second hump happens at 20 years. So it is not that time and the longer we live together, we're protected, it's good, we're fine. No, it is better, but there is still a risk. There are no quick fixes. Marriage is not going to be kept alive and thriving. The vision that God wants for us as a couple is not going to happen because of time. It's not going to happen because of education. It's not going to happen because we're now making more money. It's not going to happen because we're going to church. It's going to happen because we work on it. We open our eyes. We realize our roles. And as I started at the beginning, we are clear that the only way for us to really live God's vision is to have God in our midst. That's the only way, to have God in our midst. If you tally 1,000 couples who have been divorced and ask them the most relevant causes of divorce, there are many, many causes. Lack of communication, and Abuna mentioned a few of the topics that we're going to talk about, and they fall into the same categories of finances, conflict resolution, communication, and so on. Can we change the trajectory of our marriages? The answer is yes. Can we return to experience the purpose and potential that God intended for us in marriage? Rewarding life, restored life, resilient life? The answer is yes. Can we have hope despite the challenge? The answer is yes, but only in His presence. We will do the work, but in His presence. When God created Adam, God put him in the garden, the most beautiful place you can ever imagine. But He gave him a job. The garden is not going to stay this garden without your work. Go and till it. Take care of it. Take care of the animals. There is work we have to do. God creates when we work. Maybe our work is 1% and His is 99%, but we will not experience the 99 until we put that 1%. We need to put that 1%. And you being here says, I want to put that 1%. So praise God for that. Praise God for that. How do I prevent my marriage from getting into that situation? Either a dissolution or a marriage that stays outwardly but internally is frustrating and difficult day in and day out. I'm a physician, so I think about it like a heart attack. If somebody comes and tells me I have a terrible family history of heart disease and I don't know what to do, I say, okay, you need to protect yourself from the risk of heart attack, because heart attacks is the number one cause of death in the United States. So you want to prevent a heart attack of your marriage, know the risk factors, like you would do the heart attack. What are the risk factors? Practice healthy habits and change your lifestyle. It's not going to happen by being afraid of it. It's going to happen by you doing the work for it. So we're going to do part of the work today. We're going to look at marriage styles or styles of communication within marriage. If we have time, I will share with you what I consider the 10 commandments to follow. I break the commandments, right? But that doesn't change the commandments. What are marriage styles? Marriage styles are the way we interact with each other as a couple. This is our style of communication, but it's also our individual styles. So in a marriage interaction or communication, there is what is the couple's style and the individuals in that couple style. That doesn't mean our style is my style. So we may communicate in a certain way, but it's the result of who I am and who Mona is. So as you hear the marriage styles, think of yourself and of your spouse. Who am I in these styles, and who is she or who is he? And in all of these marriage lifestyles or communication styles, we will learn how these styles can be positive and how they can be negative. Each and every one of these. Why is it important to know my style or to know myself and to know my spouse? Because the first step, as we said, in avoiding a heart attack is to know the risks, to understand the risks. What is the risk of my style being negative? No style is all positive or all negative. What is the risk of my style turning negative? And how can I bring it to the positive side? So knowing the risk is the first step of preventing a heart attack or preventing a divorce or preventing my marriage, even if it's not going to be divorce and divorce is not on the table. And as Christians, divorce should not be on the table. It should not be an option. We should never talk about it. But we also don't want to be in a marriage that is strained constantly. We want a joyful marriage. So we're not talking here about divorce, but we're talking about rejoice. We're talking about rewarding life, restored, resilient. I want that. I want that in my house. I want that with my wife every day, every week, every month, every year for the rest of our life. The first step is to learn the risks. So I put these in 3 categories. The validating, the volatile, and the avoidant couple or style of communication. The validating couple is the couple that you meet with them and you feel like they are one. They are so homogeneous, like they look alike. Even physically they look alike. I will tell you, when I was engaged to Mona, we were interns at Cairo University Hospital. So Mona was in pediatrics, right? And I don't remember where I was, ENT or surgery, whatever. And I would go in the evening to visit her in her section in the side of the hospital. And they would tell her, your brother is outside waiting for you. So she would tell me that, and I was like, are they blind? Like, how can they think I'm your brother? We don't look alike. But they say that as couples live together for a long time, they start even their features looking alike. So a validating couple is a couple that when you meet them, you feel like they have a homogeneous connection between them. They finish each other's sentences. They never contradict each other. They are smooth. They even look alike. They negotiate and compromise. It is easy for them. The household, what's the word? Like, is buzzing. It's moving along calmly. That's a validating couple. Sometimes the couple is not validating, but one of the couple is a validating style person. So I ask you, are you a validating spouse, or is your marriage a validating style marriage? And we're going to see this is not always positive. It can have negative consequences. So we're going to see that in a minute. But think about that first style. The second is the volatile couple. They're loud. You go into their household and it is loud. Like you go in and the kids are throwing things and the wife is throwing things and the husband, like it is loud. It is a place of action. There is always something happening. It's a vibrant house. They interrupt each other, like he's saying something and she stops him because she wants to say her opinion or say her point. They are competitive and passionate. They're excited all the time. There's a high level of engagement between them. They usually will want to do adventurous things, like they will go, I don't know, swim with sharks, like do things that are volatile. Again, we will see a positive and a negative side to a volatile style. Ask yourself, am I a volatile person? Is our household a volatile household? How can we bring that to a positive side? And the last is an avoidant couple. An avoidant couple is a couple that picks and chooses when to fight. So it's not that they never fight. The validating couple usually never fight. The avoidant couple will fight, but they select when they fight. They are selective in what they consider worth fighting about. So the avoidant couple, they are conflict minimizers. So they maintain the peace by being selective. They have sort of an autonomous or separate paths in life. She has her things, he has his things. And they avoid interrupting each other's things. Like they have both busy lives and they go on with their busy lives. A few cautions before we look at each of these styles. Our style of handling conflict or our style of marriage comes from many sources. Sometimes the primary source is our family of origin. We all grew up in households. We saw our parents. And we saw what was happening in their relationship. To some, they took from that what they embraced. And to some, they took from that what they avoid, like the plague. They don't want to have the same style. So my style comes from primarily my family of origin, but it also comes from what I rubbed against in life, what I went through, the challenges I met, especially for couples who married later in life or had prior engagements, for example. They had prior relationships that failed, either dating or engagements, and from that they got scars or wounds and they learned from them things that became part of their style. The world, of course, also impacts our style. What we watch on TV, what we hear on the radio, what we read affects our style. When we talk about styles, opposites often attract. So the outspoken podium person is usually attracted to the very quiet person in the group. That's not unusual. The high energy person is usually attracted to the introvert who likes a slower pace in life. And opposites attract for a while. But sometimes the same thing that attracted after some time becomes a weapon of mass destruction. So the very detail-oriented, meticulous, to the dot person loves the life-loving, easy-going, simple person, gets married, and then everything is all over the place, and nothing is in any arrangement, and that person who is the meticulous, who got attracted to the life-loving, easy-going, starts becoming very frustrated by the things that are thrown all over the place. So opposites attract until they irritate. So we have to be careful that our styles that are different might have been the primary reason we got attracted to each other, that now irritate us, that the other person is different than me. Yes, they are, and guess what? This is exactly why you married her. That's what attracted you. So opposites attract, and it's important to realize that that is not should not be a problem as we move forward. We need to learn that, if we hear it in the world, that diversity, difference, is a strength, not a weakness. The fact that we are different can be used to build us, not to destroy us. We are all a mixture of all various moments. So the person who is volatile is not volatile all the time and all the stages of their life. They may get to a point where they are avoidant, or they may, change in different stages of their life. Every style can be beneficial in building. And the last and very important, it is possible to modify your style. مفيش حاجة اسمها أنا كده. If I speak in Arabic, will I miss somebody? I will miss you. Okay. You're right in front of me. A common, and it's more common in men than in women, and I will confess it, men will often say, this is just who I am. That's who I am. مفيش حاجة اسمها who I am. We all change. You lose hair, you gain weight, you get shorter, you change physically. Why can't you change emotionally? You can change. So possible to modify and change for the good of the one flesh. Remember, we're talking about a miracle. A miracle will not happen without my 1%. He will do the 99%, but I have to do the 1%. I have to get with myself and say, I am stubborn. I get angry easily. And that's not good. I will change. And accept that I need to change. So I will try to show you, and I tried to pick biblical examples just for us so that we can see sort of the shadow of these different styles in personalities. So these are not all coupled, these are individuals. But it shows you how different it is to be positive validating and negative validating. So a validating positive individual is a supporter, someone that can empathize, that can feel the other person's emotions, that can encourage, that can see your point of view. The best example I could think of is Elkanah, the husband of Hannah, the father of Samuel. Hannah was Elkanah's wife, and he was married to, what is the name of the other wife? Fanina. And Penina had children, but Hannah was without child, and that broke her heart. And Elkanah demonstrates for us the validator, the supporter, the encourager, the empathizer. I feel your pain. I know it's hard. You know what? Every feast or every season, as I give the kids of Penina their share, when they have a feast and they have a slaughter, he gives them their share, and he gives Penina. He gives Hannah double share, a double share, as if he says to her, you are without child, but I see you more than with child. I empathize with you. I recognize what you're going through. Translate that to the validating spouse. How you can be an empathizer, a supporter, an encourager. On the other side of the validator is the enabler. The enabler is not a supporter, he is or she is passive, allowing wrong to happen and going along with it. Same story. Jacob is married to two sisters. Leah is with child. Rachel has no children. And she goes to him and says, take my maid and give me children. So he validates the pain that she has of not having children, just like Elkanah. But he does something very different than Elkanah. He says, okay, I'll do what's wrong. I'll take the maid. I'll have children. And the 12 tribes of Israel are created through this battle between the two sisters, and they're bouncing the poor guy between them and their maids, and he is an enabler. So validation that enables wrong is a negative validation. So it's not always positive to be validating. Validating is empathizing, supporting in the right way, for the right reasons, in the right direction. Volatile. A volatile person can be enthusiastic. The first person that came to my mind was David, full of love for God, full of excitement. A guy who was ignored, not thought of among his brothers. His dad sends him to the battlefield. His brothers are all ready for war. Goliath comes out, curses the name of the Lord. This young little boy, bushy hair, blue eyes, gets out in the front and says, let me go at him. Inta min inta? Who are you? You can't do anything. But he is volatile. He's full of excitement. The volatile person is enthusiastic, excited, energetic, risk taker. The picture of David in front of the Ark of the Covenant, when he was moving the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, dancing with all his might before the Ark of the Covenant, full of excitement, volatile. That's the positive volatile relationship. The positive volatile person brings energy, excitement, risk taking. Same person, David, volatile, can be very negative. The volatile, explosive. So that's the person who is aggressive, angry, all or none. Like he goes or she goes from great joy to complete closure, complete shutdown, aggressive. Comes to mind the story of David and Nabal. I'm going to go kill this man. If it wasn't for Abigail and wisdom, calming him down and bringing his volatility under control, he would have committed a sin and a fault that would have gotten blood on his hands the person who was supposed to be a man after God's own heart. So volatile can be positive, enthusiastic, and can be negative, explosive. Again, as I'm going through these styles, I want each of us to ask myself, what is my style? Am I using it always in a positive way? And how can I bring it in my relationship with my spouse in the positive side? The last is the avoidant. The avoidant is positive when it leads us to be selective, forest focused. So I don't lose the forest for the trees. I know that my purpose is the forest. I make choices appropriately. Again, what came to mind from scripture was the story of the Holy Family's escape to Egypt. The Lord was not afraid of death. He came to die for us. He could have died as a baby in Bethlehem, but that was not the right time or the right plan of God. So when death came, when the risk of death came, he was selective, and the Holy Family was selective. They escaped. That's not coward. That's not fear. That is selective avoidance. So pick and choose what you fight about and what you don't fight about. Pick and choose what is worth getting angst about and what is not getting angst about. What can happen tomorrow if it doesn't happen today, and the earth is not going to stop going around, and what has to be taken care of today, and I'm not going to compromise about it. So the avoidant positive is selective. And again, the picture of how the Holy Spirit is selected and chose to avoid death, to avoid danger at a certain time. But the avoidant can also be negative. Abraham, and again, I don't know why the stories of the men with the women who want children keep coming up. So Abraham, his wife Sarai, comes to him and says, I have no kids, take Hagar and give me a child from her. And the father of fathers, the first patriarch, avoids a fight with his wife. Fine, I'll do whatever you say. He is avoided. He is taking the easy path. He is a peacekeeper. If I ask you, maybe you can help me, what is the difference between peacemaker and peacekeeper? Is there a difference? Silence. Is there a peacekeeper will keep the peace at any cost. A peacemaker will make peace at the right price. So the avoidant is a peacemaker. They avoid when it's right to avoid. The peacekeeper will always avoid, regardless of the consequences. Think of Abraham, what he did, and the consequences till today that we live in, generations after. What this created. Isaac and Ishmael, till today. So we went through the 3 marriage styles, and I think what we're going to do in the workshop is go through these styles and practice a little bit understanding myself, understanding my spouse, and understanding our style together. And the importance of it is, like we talked about preventing a heart attack, the first is to understand the risks and to learn that there is no style that is always right. How to make my style of life and communication a positive style. I'm going to stop here. Maybe we can get to the 10 Commandments another time.